instruments were set for speed, for light, for what we know. The instruments were set for speed, for light, for what we know. For particles that cannot rest in frequencies that flow above the only threshold that our physics will allow. But something crossed below the line, I'm looking at it now. My colleagues left at velocity, the way they always do. The laboratory empties out at 17.2 times light speed, standard closing time, usual departure. I stayed because the data had developed an odd fracture, a frequency so minimal my filters almost lost it, a signal so impossibly slow the algorithm tossed it into the discard register where noise goes to be forgotten. I pulled it back, I don't know why, the instinct was just gotten. Below the threshold, something moves. Below the place where our physics proves its self-sufficient final seal. Something slow is being revealed. Below the threshold, barely there, a signal breathing stranger air than anything my training named. Below the threshold, something came. I ran the verification checks, I ran them 7 times. I checked the instruments for drift, I checked for error signs. I sat with it for 4 hours in the cold laboratory hum. And when I finally accepted it, I felt my baseline come undone, not broken, not afraid, but fundamentally changed. The universe I thought I knew had quietly been rearranged, not shattered, widened, given a dimension and a door that opened onto something I had never seen before. Below the threshold, something moves. Below the place where our physics proves its self-sufficient final seal. Something slow is being revealed. Below the threshold, barely there, a signal breathing stranger air than anything my training named. Below the threshold, something came. It lasted 14 seconds on the readout, maybe less. A frequency that shouldn't be a signal in distress. Or not distress, just difference. Just the sound of something there on the other side of everything existing in slow air. Below the threshold, something moves. Below the pleasure is being revealed than anything my training named. Below the threshold, something came. Log it. Below the threshold, logged, log it. The anomaly is catalog, log it. I presented it on Tuesday at the Velocity Colloquium. The room was moving fast, as rooms in our world always do. I showed the readout, showed the math, showed 14 seconds of the impossible, and watched the faces of my colleagues shift from curious to hostile. The first objection came from Vaen, whom I've always respected. Instrument malfunction, she said, the kind that goes undetected until it generates a ghost frequency below our range. I said I checked 7 times, she said check again, it's strange. The second came from Holos, theoretical, precise, who said the math I was proposing wasn't merely wrong, but ice cold dangerous. Because if matter could exist below light speed, we'd have to reconsider everything our civilization needs. The heresy of slowness in a world that cannot stop. The blasphemy of stillness at the physics department, where we built our entireization on the understanding that the threshold is a ceiling, not a floor with understanding. The heresy of slowness, say it slow, say it clear. Something underneath the barrier is there. The mystics had a name for it, the unmoving ground of being. The philosophers had theorized what no one had been seeing as anything but metaphor, as comfort for the dying, who dreamed of rest at last, and here was I, implying that the dream was real, was physical, was measurable and there, that stillness wasn't heaven but a universe somewhere. Below the speed of light, across an uncrossable divide, where something lived in slowness on the other side. I understood then why they feared it more than they dismissed it. It was everything that missed it, that we are not the only mode of being, that the universe is not a singular or lonely. Let them dismiss it. The signal doesn't care. Let them dismiss it. The other side is still there. Let them. Let them. The data remains. "47 signals in the last 3 months of monitoring. The distribution isn't random and the pattern keeps on following. A rhythm that repeats with variation, like a language does, like something that has meaning at its center. Something that was made. Not born of physics, not a resonance of stone, not the universe vibrating in a frequency alone, but structured, organized, intentional in ways that natural phenomenal don't organize in the space between pure chaos and pure order, where the living things reside. I know that zone, I've studied it my whole career inside this universe of motion, where the living things all move at speeds that make them visible, and here below the groove. Structure in the signal, structure that means minds, structure that means someone on the other side is also watching something they don't understand. Structure in the signal on the other's life. Structure that means someone in the slow universe tonight is doing what I'm doing, looking up or down or through. Structure in the signal, structure that means you. I use the word advisedly, you, because the alternative is to call it it. And something in me cannot give that name to what I'm hearing in the readouts and the math. Something in me recognized life along this path. My grandmother spoke of this in the old philosophical tradition, that consciousness is not a product, but a universal condition, but existence tends condition, that something in the fabric of existence toward knowing tends the awareness of itself toward the growing. I sat with the 47 signal for 6 hours. I watched it breathe its impossible slow breath for hours. And when it ended, I sat in the silence of my movement that life had furled itself across both sides of the one barrier that holds everything apart, and that the universe enfolds. Not one mode of being, but at minimum two, and one of them just singled, and I think it might be you. Structure in the signal, structure that means minds, structure that means someone on the other side is also watching something they don't understand. Structure in the signal, looking up or down or through. Structure in the signal, structure that means you. Pattern confirmed, life confirmed, other side confirmed, witness required. The mathematics took 11 months to formalize completely. The universe on the other side of light exists discreetly, symmetric to our own in ways that make the elegance almost unbearable, the kind of beautiful that makes no sense. Where we have imaginary mass, they have the real. Where we have infinite energy required to slow, they feel the same infinity required. They dream of moving at the rate of bright. We call their universe impossible from where we stand. They call ours impossible from where their instruments are scanned. Across the barrier neither crosses, neither touches, neither sees, except through signals, except through math, except through theories.
The mere hypothesis, light as the axis, to reality, some magic either side. The mere hypothesis, what we call impossibles, they're ordinary, what they call impossible is ours. The mere hypothesis, not mystic mathematics, the universe is not singular but double split by light. The mere hypothesis, I can prove it, I can show it, I just cannot cross it, the barrier holds tonight.
In their universe, the mystics dream of motion without end, of particles that never slow, of energy that bends toward the impossible velocity that we call baseline Tuesday. They call it heaven, we call it the only way. There is a symmetry so deep in this it almost breaks me. The thing each universe considers sacred, barely reachable. The philosopher's stone, the mystic's vision, is simply the other side's Tuesday, that precision. I named the framework mirror hypothesis, submitted it at dawn. By evening 17 colleagues had already moved it on to the theoretical archive where the unprovable is stored. I filed it under true and waited for the record to be scored by history, which moves even in our universe quite slowly. When it comes to paradigms, I've learned to bear the lonely interval between the knowing and the known, between the signal and the answer, between together and alone.
The mere hypothesis, not mystic mathematics, the universe is not singular but double split by light. The mere hypothesis, I can prove it, I can show it, I just cannot cross it, the barrier holds tonight.
I spent 2 years attempting to disprove the barrier's permanence. I modeled 17 approaches with increasing desperation, each one elegant, each one internally consistent, each one wrong. The barrier doesn't care about my need, it simply holds and holds along. The speed of light is not a wall that better tools might breach, not because we haven't tried, not because the will is small, but because the threshold is the threshold. That is all. I grieve this in the way that scientists grieve things. Not loudly, not in ceremony, but in the small quiet rings of sleepless calculation, in the margins of the proof, where hope had been, and now there was only the roof.
The absolute, there is such a loop, there is such a thing. The absolute, not every door's a key. The absolute, some barriers are the structure, not the absolute is free. Of my desire, of my grief, us negotiate or yield. The absolute is simply where existence has been cleaved into two halves that will not be revealed to each other ever. The absolute holds.
And yet I found, in sitting with the permanent impossibility, a strange and unexpected kind of peace, a new humility, not the humility of failure but of scale, of understanding that I am small and the universe is vast and the demanding, of crossing what cannot be crossed is not the only form, that knowing takes, that witness its own legitimate norm, the domination of what cannot be reached is still a form of reaching that the absolute cannot kill.
The absolute, there is such a thing. The absolute, not every door's a key. The absolute, some barriers are the structure, not the absolute is struggle. The absolute is free. Of my desire, of my grief, us negotiate or yield. The absolute is simply where existence has been cleaved into two halves that will not be each other ever. the absolute holds.
The curiosity that generated it only redirects it toward the question not of crossing but of what exists on the other side, impermanent and beautiful remove, and what it means that I can hear it, even if I cannot move toward it. Even if the hearing is the whole of what I have the hearing, and the hearing is enough to solve the wound of the impossible. I turn back to my instruments and find, to my surprise, I'm grateful for the permanence.
The barrier holds good. The barrier holds good.
Both sides intact, both sides real. The barrier holds. The practical applications are exactly none. The signals I document will not be acted on by anyone in any useful sense. I will not build a bridge. I will not send a message. I will not establish contact. I will simply tend the instruments, the readouts, the increasingly refined notation system I've developed for a universe designed of slowness, for the frequencies that barely move at all, for life that rests, that sleeps, that stops, for the beautiful and small. My colleagues ask me periodically why I persist. I tell them, because they exist, and existence should be kissed with awareness. When awareness is available and near, I am available and near. That is my purpose here.
Witness means you saw it and you wrote it down. Witness means you stayed when others left the ground. Witness means the thing that happened had a name. Witness means existence isn't all the same as absence. Witness is the difference between the thing that was and the thing that was not seen. Witness means I know you're there. Witness means someone cared. Witness.
There is a tradition in the old philosophy of my world that the highest act of mind is not the theory unfurled, but the attention, the pure sustained, returning attention to what is, without agenda, without the intervention of desire, the attention that simply lets the thing be real. By seeing it, I think of each time I feel the slow signal rise in the readout, and I think, you are real because I see you, we are linked.
Witness means you saw it and you wrote it down. Witness means you stayed when others left the ground. Witness means the thing that happened had a name. Witness means existence isn't all the same as absence. Witness is the difference between the thing that was and the thing that was not seen. Witness means I know you're there. Witness means someone cared. Witness.
Not by communication, not by crossing, not by touch, but by the thinnest possible connection, just this much. That somewhere in the slow universe a life is being lived, and somewhere in the fast one I have chosen to have given my remaining years to knowing that, to keeping that alive in the record of my discipline. To witness is to survive, both the barrier and the silence. Witness is enough. Witness is, I've come to understand, the only proof. Recording, recording, I exist, recording. The barrier holds, recording. And that is all. And that is everything. 40 years of signal cataloged in 17 volumes. The notation system has been published quietly in columns of a theoretical journal that 11 people read. I consider this sufficient, more than sufficient. I have freed the knowledge from my mind into the records, beyond my instruments, beyond what time gives or takes. The 17 volumes will outlast me, and in them the slow universe will be accessible to anyone who finds them and believes. The mathematics and the readouts and the evidence that weaves itself through 40 years of careful, patient documentation of a reality that science hasn't named yet, my notation.
The slow universe sings in frequencies below our threshold. The slow universe sings in the registers we weren't designed to hold. The slow universe sings and I have been the only ear. The slow universe sings and now the record makes it clear that singing happened, that existence crossed the barrier and signal, if not in self. The two realities acknowledge one another through the thinnest possible connection. Witness the slow universe sings.
I wonder sometimes if on the other side someone is doing what I have done. Detecting, documenting, pursuing the anomaly of something fast, impossibly in motion. A physicist in stillness, at the edge of a slow ocean, who has spent her life recording some she cannot reach, who has built a notation system for velocity speech, who sits at instruments and listens past the point of useful toward the point of true. Because the beautiful and truthful deserve a witness, and she is the only one available. She tends the instruments and I tend mine, the syllable. Between us is the speed of light, the absolute, the held barrier. And in that barrier both our universes dwell, together, separated, parallel, aware of one another, through the thinnest thread of care. That knowledge is, I know you're there, I know you're there, I know, I know.
The slow universe sings in frequencies below our threshold. The slow universe sings in the registers we weren't designed to hold. The slow universe sings and I have been the only ear. The slow universe sings and now the record makes it clear that singing happened, that existence crossed the barrier in signal, if not in self. The two realities acknowledge one another through the thinnest possible connection. Witness the slow universe sings.
The instruments keep running, the signals keep arriving, the slow universe keeps singing, the record keeps surviving, the barrier holds, both sides real. The instruments keep running, after me, keep running.